Hello everybody, this is Migueltio, the North Country Latino, and today we got quite a feast going on here. The main part of that feast is a Spanish recipe, chicken with pine nuts. Now pine nuts, we think of a lot of Italian cooking, but Spain and Italy and even parts of Latin America are kind of along the same climactic plane, okay? So we are making this recipe for anybody who wants to cook with pine nuts, because they're available all over the place now. You don't have to go to an Italian section to get pine nuts. So, chicken with pine nuts, pollo con nueces is today's, and we're cooking it up with a couple other things made from some homemade butternut squash. Okay? The first thing I'm making is some Candied de Almendra, or candied squash. It's going to go on some puff pastries. It's going to be awesome dessert. And then I'm going to do this other recipe here going on at the same time with some diced squash that's going to go with some couscous and some cranberries. So we've got our chicken parts here in the pan, and we're going to get those nice and brown. Meanwhile, I've got most of the homegrown butternut squash boiling here for a good 20 minutes in the pot. And then I'm going to candy it later. And I've got the oven preheated to 400 because this squash over here, nice and diced, is going to go in this baking pan to go in the oven a little bit later when the oven's preheated. So we're going to sprinkle the chicken with a little adobo. Instead of using salt and pepper separate, use it when it's together. Not much for sodium, but so you just go over it a little bit. Just to kind of give it a coating. Nothing huge, no big teaspoon or tablespoons full. Hey, it's great, it's going to make it taste good, you know? And then I'm going to take a little bit of olive oil. And that's all I got in my bottle. It's a little bit of olive oil. I have to go shopping for olive oil soon. So anyways, going to put a couple spoons over that. And turn my pan on so it can start browning. One more on the other side of the pan. Come on out of there. There we go. I've got that distributed under the chicken. I'm going to turn on my power. And it's going to start browning. You need about 3 to 3.5 pounds of chicken pieces, cut up just like this. They can be any pieces you want, drumsticks, breast, thighs, boneless or bone-in, whichever you want to do, an assortment. So with that salt, pepper, and olive oil, we're going to get this nice and brown. So while that's all going on, I'm going to take my 4 cups of diced squash, put it in the bowl, and a teaspoon of olive oil going in. And I'm going to toss that around. And put it over in this baking dish. And that's going into the oven. I'm going to throw a little adobo over that too. That's going to go in the oven once this thing is preheated at 400. So bake a little bit. Again, you don't need much salt and pepper. If you want to get technical, a 1/4 teaspoon of each, a little shake over that will be fine. Still waiting for that oven to preheat, but I got that ready to go when it happens. And our chicken is starting to brown. You can hear it. Isn't that awesome? Start turning it so we can get on the other side. And of course, we all know Hispanic Heritage Month is coming up. A couple days from now or so. depending on when you're watching it. It may already be on by the time you watch it. But between Italy and Spain and parts of Latin America, some of that is practically on the same parallel. So you never know. There could be pine nuts available in Latin America to make chicken with pine nuts. Pollo con Pinones, which is the term for the feast. Pollo con Pinones. That chicken is brown and bright time. Alright, that oven is preheated, so we are putting the 4 cups of diced squash into the oven. There you go. And look at the one side of that chicken. Yummy, yummy. Now I've got some sugar in the saucepan, and I'm putting in 5 tablespoons of water. There's number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5, numero 5. Adding to that a little bit of lemon zest. Maybe a pinch. There we go. Into that saucepan. So let this go until the sugar melts. Also add to that a cinnamon stick. Stir that around while that sugar is softening. And to this little pot, you're going to add the squash that I softened earlier. And then what you're going to do is stir that around the coat. Let it come to a boil. Let it simmer for about 35 minutes or so. And that candies the squash. Once that squash is boiling, like it is now, just stir it frequently. Now back to the chicken. Meanwhile, back at the chicken, we got it brown on all sides, so we're going to add a teaspoon of flour. Just kind of coat that around. Voila. And got a couple tablespoons of shallot, which if you never cooked the shallots before, they're like tiny onions. There that goes. And of course you peel off the peels and chop them up just like regular onions, but they're really small. Stir that around. Beautiful. And who has time for time? Who has time for anything these days? But if you got time for anything, it's good cooking. Or try to make time. And if you got time for good cooking, you've got time for time. Because you're going to put some time in this. About half a teaspoon. So don't run out of time for time. And there that goes. Nice. Yes, you got enough time for time. Time is on your side in a recipe like this. Alright, enough of the bad time jokes. Anyways, also going in here is a bay leaf. One of those nice big sized bay leaves like you get for turkey. You go in a recipe like this because you got yourself a lot of chicken. And a good bay leaf gives off good flavor. And you got some parsley on hand. Now with the parsley, you're really going crazy. 2 tablespoons. So there's 1. Some more on that, and there we go with 2. 2 tablespoons of parsley. Mix that around. And a good recipe sometimes takes a good wine. In this case, a cooking wine. Half a cup. Right over the chicken. Mix that around. And our guest of honor, the pine nuts. And it's a good thing that these bags of pine nuts only come in 2 ounces worth. Because guess what? The recipe calls for 2 ounces of pine nuts. 2 ounces of pine nuts right here. Open the bag. They're really tiny compared to most of your nuts, like almonds and walnuts and everything that we cook with. There they go. And like I said, pine nuts are everywhere now. They're not just in exclusive markets anymore. There's all kinds of recipes that take them. From breads and hummuses to something like this. Here's that big old bay leaf. Get that in there. You got to flavor your stuff here. You don't want that bay leaf sitting on one piece of chicken only. Saute that stuff around. And guess what you're going to do with it next? You're going to put the cover on. Turn that down to low. Cook it slowly for about half an hour. Meanwhile, while that's going on, you're going to put your dried cranberries in a bowl and get some hot water. You got my faucet all ready to go here. Some hot water and just enough to cover it. You're going to rehydrate the dried cranberries. Hot water will do the trick. And of course, remember to turn your water off so you're not wasting it. So you've got that hanging out, waiting on that squash in the oven. Meanwhile, in a small saucepan, you're going to boil 2 cups of water. Get that boiling. And that's going to be for the squash. It's now out of the oven, nice and baked. All ready and waiting. Once that does boil, you're going to stir in this nice box of 10 ounces of couscous. Meanwhile, you're going to preheat your oven again, this time to 425. So you can finish off your Banda De Almendra. This is what you're taking that candied squash from and making into candied squash pastry strips, which is kind of an elegant and quick little dessert. So you've got your candied squash done, and now you're preheating the oven for the rest of the Banda De Almendra. Alright, that water's boiling, so we're going to pour in the couscous. Stir it so it's covered. Cover it and take it off the heat. Now, these rehydrated cranberries need a little draining now that they're back to life again. Shake out that strainer. Get yourself a nice medium-sized bowl, and in it you're going to put these awesome baked squash squares that you diced and baked for a while. I'm just making sure nothing's sticking to the bottom of that pan. Into the bowl. A couple of stubborn ones here are going to go in. This is like a nice accompaniment to the chicken. It's going to be that season of butternut squash. And yeah, you can make it the same old way. Baked or boiled with the butter and all that. Or you can do something different. I mean, that recipe's great. But this one sounds pretty good too. And you got yourself about 1/3 of a cup of diced celery. That's going in. And you got your cranberries. They're going in. Take off off any that don't come out. Keep stirring it all together. Add to it about 2/3 of a cup of almond slivers. Good protein source. And stir it around some more. Remember that lemon zest from the candied squash? You're going to put in a little more here. And stir it around some more. And then you get some lemon juice. Nice and lemony. 4 tablespoons. Numero uno. Entre. Numero dos. Numero tres. Número 4. Entro en mi salada. Jugo de limón. Go into my salad. And guess what you're going to do again? You're going to stir it around again. Mix it really good. That's going to be an awesome accompaniment to this chicken, which is coming along beautifully under the cover. Remember that couscous under the pan? Fluff that baby up. All those little babies, those little couscous brains that they are. Guess where that's going? Right in with the cranberries and the squash and everything else. There it goes. Since it all goes together. You got a little bit that didn't quite make it. Loosen that stuff up. There we go. I got it loose over here. Going in. There we go. We're empty. Guess what you're going to do with it? Mix it together again. Even more. Couscous and squash and dried cranberries and celery and almonds and lemon juice and lemon zest. There's so many kinds of salads to make today. And anybody can eat them. You don't have to be one nationality or another to eat couscous today. Or dried cranberries. Or anything like that. And you don't necessarily have to be getting ready for Thanksgiving to make squash or have a big roast in the oven. Those are great too on a Sunday afternoon. But when that's not what you got going, but you got a garden full of squash, there's other things you can do with it too. Oh yeah, that's ready to go. Now on a prepared cookie sheet, I've got 1 sheet of puff pastry. I'm splitting them on the seams. Then I'm going to split them into strips from there. Remember I had to preheat the oven to 425? Well, that's so that this can go in and bake. And I'm going down the side here. The one side, kind of the middle of that side. Then I'm going to go to the total middle of the whole thing. Make some splits. And then I'm going to go to the middle of the right side. Make some splits. So you get these little strips. That's what the candied squash is going to go on. The one part I forgot here, I'm going to go crosswise. So the whole thing is strips. 2 sets of strips. There we go. Now we're talking. strip like this. I'm just going to kind of make sure that it's separated. That would stink. It's kind of like getting those pizza kits with the breadsticks, you know. It comes in the big sheet and you got to separate it and all that. Good little Caesars. They'll probably be selling those around your community soon, so you never know, folks. Among other things, school's back in session, so support your local fundraisers. And this is working out pretty well down here. There you go. They're nice and separated. So I'm going to put those into the oven on the upper rack, 425, and see what happens in about 7 minutes of that. Make sure they get nice and brown. We'll start with 7 minutes. I'm going to cover my couscous and squash salad here. These new mixing bowls we got from Pampered Chef that have the connective covers that go right in the fridge, and you can use them for any baking thing or mixing thing. Use them just like a mixing bowl, but also just like a bowl to keep any food in. They're terrific from Pampered Chef. And this cover seals right on, so it's ready to like go in the fridge when you got leftovers, as well as just keeping something warm when you're just finishing. Alright, now those puff pastry sheets are out of the oven, and you're going to keep your oven on because you're not done yet. Remember that kind of jam-like stuff we made with the squash, candied squash? And that's about the texture it's going to be. You can use candied pumpkin for this also, or just jam if you want to really just, you know, not do something homemade. It's going to feel like jam. Take about a teaspoon, anywhere between a teaspoon and a tablespoonful, and spread it on top of the pastry. Spread around, just like this. Don't have it falling all over the pan. You know what? I'm going to try to use, see one of these Boston squares will work even better. Because you can take a dab on that and then spread. There you go. There you go. And just spread it over the square, or the bar, which is better to describe these. With what you've made out of your pastry, you've made them into little bars. And just spread that down. So it's like frosting cookies, or little cakes. Because you're going to throw this back in the oven for 5 minutes after it's done. You've got it all nice and sweet, so no, it's not going to taste like, oh my God, squash, oh. No, this has been sweetened for quite a while. You candied it. I know here in America we don't have a lot of candying recipes other than making like chocolate or whatever. But candied vegetables is something that's been practiced for a number of years. Such as squash, such as pumpkin, some of your tubers. I'm sure some of the other tubers you see in the stores like jicama can be candied just the same if you really found a recipe for it. Or, well, candied sweet potatoes. There's another prime example that, again, we make a lot of times at Thanksgiving and things. But like I said, when you're not at that time of year quite yet, but you got a harvest to deal with and don't want to make the same old thing, get creative, you know? It's like an artistry. Like I'm painting here. Painting these suckers with this awesome Pampered Chef, I guess it's a frosting spreader. Well, it's great for getting the batter out of bowls too, when you're making homemade things. it can spread right on a pastry like this. Almost there. Got a couple more left. Ah, that one fell apart on me. Get those flakes back up there. So that's one thing about puff pastry. It gets nice and flaky. Good old Petrus Farm remembers. Yeah. Couple more to do. One more to go. That's the neat thing about this little feast I'm making today is everything had a different direction to go, so it's not like I'm conflicting the oven or conflicting the stovetop or conflicting bowls and everything. There they are. They've got their spread on top of the candied squash, and they're ready to go back in for another 5 minutes. Uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco. Well, wouldn't you know, it's time to get those suckers out of the oven. So there they are, ready to come. Oh, they look good. Smell good around here too. That's for sure. And then you're going to top them off with sprinkles of powdered sugar. Well, it'd be like something you'd make at a carnival or a fair. So this feast is ready, my friends, mis amigos. We have got Pollo con Pinones, chicken with pine nuts. We have got a awesome Couscous cranberry squash celery salad. And for dessert, we have got Banda De Almendra, which is a little pastry with candied squash topped over it. And this is Migueltio de Latino. So I hope you enjoyed dinner and dessert tonight, whatever you're having. Maybe make this sometime and have a great Hispanic Heritage Month to all those celebrating. And a wonderful back to school for everybody who's gone back to school, teachers and students alike. But it's dinner time, time to eat. Have some pollo with me. Hasta luego. Until next time.